communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. My name is Todd Goldfinger and here's today's headlines. President Joe Biden on Saturday marveled at the spirit and resolve of Ukrainian refugees in the aftermath of Russia's deadly invasion, as he embraced mothers and children and promised enduring support from Western powers. Biden, while in Poland's capital, listened intently as children described the perilous flight from neighboring Ukraine with their parents. Smiling broadly, he lifted up a young girl in a pink coat and told her she reminded him of his granddaughters. The president held hands with parents and gave them hugs during the stop at a soccer stadium where refugees go to obtain a Polish identification number that gives them access to social services such as healthcare and schools. Some of the women and children told Biden that they fled without their husbands and fathers, men of fighting age, who were required to remain behind to aid the resistance against the forces that Russian President Vladimir Putin, a butcher, in Biden's words, sent into Ukraine more than a month ago. In quotes, "What I am always surprised by is the depth and strength of the human spirit," Biden told reporters after his conversations with the refugees at the stadium, which more recently had served as a field hospital for COVID-19 patients. In quotes, "Each one of those children said something to the effect of, 'Say a prayer for my dad or grandfather or my brother who's out there fighting.'" Next news. In Donald Trump's push to fundamentally reshape the Republican Party, a few places are a higher priority than Georgia. The former president had issued highly coveted endorsements in races ranging from governor to state insurance commissioner. His backing of football legend Herschel Walker essentially cleared a path to the party's nomination for a critical U.S. Senate seat. Trump has taken a particularly active role in shaping the governor's race, recruiting former Senator David Perdue to challenge incumbent Brian Kemp as retribution for his not going along with the lies about the 2020 election being stolen. And in an effort to clear a path for Perdue, Trump pressed another Republican in the race, Vernon Jones. to run for Congress instead. Trump returns to Georgia on Saturday night for a rally with Walker, Perdue, Jones, and other Republicans he's backed ahead of the state's May 24th primary. The campaign is emerging as an early critical test of whether the former president can live up to his professed role as a kingmaker of the GOP. Next news. In that singular moment, Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson spoke for countless black women who have had to gather all their patience, strength, and grace within to answer insinuating questions about their credentials, qualifications, and their character. It was day one of questioning at a Senate Judiciary Committee at the Harvard-educated Jackson, the first black woman to be nominated for the nation's highest court, was making history. The federal judge had to endure hours of public scrutiny from skeptics, namely the Republican senators who are erecting a wall of opposition to her landmark nomination, the first in the court's 233-year history, and may vote en bloc against her confirmation. In quotes. It was really traumatizing to watch, end quotes, said Melanie L. Campbell, President and CEO of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation and convener of the Black Women's Roundtable. From questioning of Jackson's view of books on critical race theory that drew her exasperated sigh, in quotes. They don't come up in my work as a judge, she said, to the loaded suggestion that the sentences she imposed on child pornography defendants were too lenient. The questions from the Republicans tapped into long-standing American grievances over race, class, and public safety. Next news. Next news, please. The push by Republicans to conduct partisan ballot reviews similar to the one that unfolded last year in Arizona has spread beyond the battleground states where former President Donald Trump disputed his loss. An effort that has had mixed legislative success, but has sown doubts about whether future elections can be trusted. While most of the bills are unlikely to become law, the debates and public hearings in GOP-controlled state legislative chambers have added fuel to the false claims that widespread fraud cost Trump re-election in 2020, in quotes. They're all really tearing down democracy, and they don't think they are, end quotes, said Scott McDonald, the election clerk in Dane County, Wisconsin, home to the state capital. The proposals come after flawed Republican-ordered reviews in Arizona and Wisconsin, where GOP lawmakers gave the job of examining the previous election to partisan actors. In Arizona, the contract went to a Florida-based firm with no previous experience in election audits, but with a CEO who had expressed support for conspiracy theories surrounding the 2020 presidential results. In Wisconsin, the Republican leader of the state assembly appointed a retired state Supreme Court justice who declared the election stolen even before he began his review. Similar efforts are being pursued by Republicans in the presidential battleground states of Michigan and Pennsylvania, which were also won by President Biden. We're going to take a short break from the daily global news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. Here's the continuation of today's top stories. A shooting at a suburban Chicago shopping mall left one man dead and two other people wounded, including a teenage girl, while shoppers ran for cover, police said. A person of interest was taken into custody after Friday night's shooting at the fashion outlets of a Chicago mall in Rosemont, a village just northwest of the city, Rosemont police said. Police did not release a motive for the shooting that happened just after 7 p.m. near the mall's indoor food court, but said it was an isolated incident and possibly a targeted attack. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office identified the man who died as Joel Valdez, 20. A 15-year-old girl who was shot in the right wrist was in stable condition, said Sergeant Joe Balog of the Rosemont Public Safety Department. The third person who was shot ran away or escaped. Rosemont spokesman Gary Mack told the Chicago Tribune, Balog said that while two assailants fled in a red car, authorities evacuated and searched the mall. Louis Eligio said he and his family, included his 5-month-old daughter, were shopping at a store in the mall when a woman opened the store's doors and screamed, "They're shooting!" in quotes. An employee locked the doors and people inside retreated to the back of the store, Eligio said, in quotes. And right after that, I heard what sounded like an automatic weapon, end quotes. He said while recovering with his family in the lobby of the nearby Crown Plaza Hotel. Next news. Dissatisfied with the temporary job she accepted after graduating from the University of Chicago, Sahana Dharmapuri felt the pressure to find work using her studies of the Middle East and public policy. Scanning a newspaper on her lunch break, she found a full-page ad featuring a portion of a speech by then Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. on the effort to negotiate peace between Israel and Palestine. Dharma Puri tore the page out and took it with her when she moved to Washington, D.C. to hunt for a meaningful job. It was the start of a career shaped by Albright's example, from her history-making appointment as the first female Secretary of State to the decades she spent mentoring, teaching, and speaking to women. Albright's death from cancer this week sparked American women to reflect on the 84-year-old diplomat's sweeping influence on their lives. 25 years after Bill Clinton made her the United States representative to the world. In quotes. Not only did she break the ceiling, she brought people along with her. Whether they were close to her or like me, who saw her from a distance and said, "I can do that too," end quote, said Dharma Puri, director of Our Secure Future, a foundation that seeks to increase women's participation in international affairs. Albright's path and her identities as a child refugee, wife and mother who carved out a career in a male-dominated field gave women a new vision for their lives, said Hannah Riley Bowles, co-director of the Women and Public Policy program at Harvard's Kennedy School. In quotes. Her whole story, we should tell it over and over again, Bowles said. In quotes. She broke down stereotypes that still interrupt women's career potential today. End quotes. Albright also was known for bringing countless women into politics or policy work, often without ever meeting them face to face. Next news. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will try to use his three-nation tour of the Middle East and North Africa to reassure wary Israelis and Arabs that the Biden administration is committed to the region's security at a time when Washington is confronting multiple foreign policy challenges. U.S. preoccupation with Russia's invasion of Ukraine and bolstering NATO's presence in Eastern Europe has fueled concerns that America's attention may be stretched thin. Indeed, Blinken's trip was rescheduled several times due to developments in Ukraine, and he was scheduled to arrive in Israel on Saturday from Warsaw after breaking off from President Joe Biden's Ukraine-dominated visit to Belgium and Poland. Blinken's visit also comes as talks over salvaging a landmark nuclear deal with Iran are winding down amid fears in Israel and among Gulf Arab nations that an agreement may not be tough enough to curb Tehran's regional aggressiveness. Israel was strongly opposed to the 2015 agreement between Iran and world powers and welcomed then-President Donald Trump's decision to unilaterally withdraw from the deal. Israel has warned against reviving the agreement and says it will not be bound by any new deals. Underscoring regional anxieties, Israel's government has hastily arranged a meeting of top diplomats from Arab countries that have normalized relations with Israel. In addition to Blinken and Israeli Foreign Minister Yair Lapid, their counterparts from Bahrain, Morocco, and the United Arab Emirates will attend. Those three countries normalized relations with Israel in 2020, in the so-called Abraham Accords brokered by the Trump administration. Israel's foreign ministry said in an announcement Saturday that Egypt, the first Arab state to recognize Israel, will send representatives to the gathering to be held at a kibbutz in the Negev desert, where Israel's founding father, David Ben-Gurion, spent his retirement years. The two-day summit is to begin Sunday, according to the announcement, which gave no details about the agenda. Next news. Reports that the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas implored Donald Trump's White House chief of staff to act to overturn the 2020 election results have put a spotlight on how justices decide whether to step aside from a case. Individual justices make their own unreviewable calls on a court that lacks a code of ethics. And the issue is not always clear, particularly when spouses also have prominent careers. While the Supreme Court did not step into any election cases brought by Trump and other Republicans, Justice Thomas took part in the consideration of whether to hear those cases. He was also the lone vote to keep House lawmakers investigating the January 6th Capitol riot from obtaining contested White House documents. Thomas did not immediately respond Friday to a request for comment made through the court's spokeswoman. Earlier in the day, the court announced he had been discharged from the hospital after a stay of nearly a week while he was treated for an infection. Thomas's wife, Virginia, whom he married in 1987, is a longtime conservative activist who ardently backed Trump's re-election as president in 2020. In the weeks leading up to the election, Thomas used her Facebook page to amplify unsubstantiated claims of corruption by Joe Biden, Trump's opponent. Once it was over, Thomas, known as Ginny, sent weeks of text messages imploring White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, furthering Trump's lies, that the free and fair vote was marred by non-existent fraud. According to copies of the messages obtained by the Washington Post and CBS News. We're going to take a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Thank you, and please stay with us.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. Here's a continuation of today's top stories. Thanks for being with us. Ukraine's president called Saturday on energy-rich nations to increase their production of oil and natural gas to counteract the loss of Russian supplies amid sanctions over Moscow's war on his country of Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky made a surprise video appearance on Qatar's Doha Forum, an annual summit in the gas-rich nation that will host the 2022 FIFA World Cup later this year. It's part of a rhetorical offensive of addresses he's given around the world since the start of the war, February 24th, 2022. Zelensky asked countries to increase their energy exports, something particularly important as Qatar is a world leader in the export of natural gas. Western sanctions have deeply cut into Russian exports, which are crucial for European nations. In quotes, the responsible states, in particular the state of Qatar, you are reliable and reputable suppliers of energy resources, Zelensky said. In quotes, and you can contribute to stabilizing the situation in Europe. There's much that can be done to restore justice. End quotes. He added, the future of Europe depends on your efforts. I urge you to increase energy production to make Russia understand that no state should use energy as a weapon to blackmail the world. End quotes. Next news. Next news. The Middle East is the most water-scarce region in the world, but participants at an upcoming climate summit in Dubai will be ensconced in a resort with one of the world's largest water parks, complete with artificial lagoons, encounters with dolphins, and mesmerizing aquarium with sharks, stingrays, and other schools of fish. It's a striking backdrop for a climate summit aimed at tackling lack of water and other pressing issues facing the region due in part to warming global temperatures from the very fossil fuels produced by Gulf, Arab states, and others. The Arabian Peninsula, where Dubai sits, is grappling with menacing sandstorms, rising temperatures, and dangerous humidity levels, as major world powers vow to shift to greener forms of energy. Oil producers Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates say they too will cut emissions within their borders, even as they vow to keep pumping oil and gas for export to fuel their economies. It's fair. Dania Cherry of Greenpeace, MENA, said it will not be easy for oil producers to transition away from fossil fuels. In quotes, we understand it will take time, but we need to be more ambitious and we need to really do bigger steps on this, Cherry said. Next news. When an assembly of First Nations delegation traveled to the Vatican in 2009 to meet with then Pope Benedict XVI, the pontiff told them in a private meeting of his personal anguish over abuse suffered by Indigenous children in church-run boarding schools they were forced to attend in Canada. What at the time was called an expression of deep, heartfelt regret is no longer seen as sufficient after last year's discovery in British Columbia of about 200 unmarked and previously undocumented graves of children at what was Canada's largest Indigenous residential school. One of numerous similar grim sites across the country. Now, Indigenous leaders are expecting nothing less than a public apology from Pope Francis, with government officials up to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau lending support to their cause. Set to meet with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit survivors at the Vatican next week ahead of a visit to Canada that could come later this year. The pontiff appears likely to offer just such an apology for the church's role in boarding school abuses. In quotes, "We're trying to give a voice to the voiceless by going there," said Gary Gagnon, who will represent the Métis people of mixed European and Indigenous ancestry in the delegation. Originally scheduled for last December, the visit was postponed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. More than 150,000 Native children were forced to attend state-funded Christian schools from the 19th century until the 1970s in an effort to isolate them from the influence of their homes and culture, to Christianize and assimilate them into mainstream society, which previous governments considered to be superior. Next news. As in the past, the Prime Minister sent flowers, fruits, and sweetmeats to the war-wounded FFs and members of the martyred families at Martyred and War-Wounded Freedom Fighters Rehabilitation Center, Muktejada Tower 1, on Ghaznavi Road in the capital's Muhammadpur area as a mark of her good wishes for them. PM's Assistant Private Secretary, APS, to Ghazi Hafizur Rahman Liku, and Assistant Press Secretary, ABM Sarwar E. Alam Sarkar, handed over the items to them. On their part, the war-wounded FFs and members of the martyred families expressed their gratitude to the Prime Minister for remembering them on every important occasion, be it National Day, Independence Day, Victory Day, Eid, or Pahela Baishak. The freedom fighters also expressed satisfaction over the country's irresistible progress under the leadership of the eldest daughter of Father of the Nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. They specifically mentioned that the welfare of the people of the country, as well as the freedom fighters and their families, are being ensured by the Awami League government, in quotes, which believes in the spirit of the Great Liberation War, end quotes. According to a release, the freedom fighters thanked the Prime Minister for providing increased allowances and accommodation to the FFs. They expressed their belief that under the leadership of PM Sheikh Hasina, the country will one day become a poverty-free, prosperous, and self-respecting golden Bangladesh as dreamt by Banga Bandhu. We're going to take a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. Here's the continuation of today's top stories. Bangladesh High Commissioner to the UK, Saida Muna Tasneem, made the call at a high-profile commemorative event on the 51st anniversary of Bangladesh Genocide Day, jointly organized by Bangladesh High Commission, London, in collaboration with University College London, UCL Today, in quotes. On April 1971, Sir Peter Shore, MP, who was chair of the UK's Foreign Affairs Committee, moved a motion in the UK Parliament condemning atrocities committed in erstwhile East Pakistan, followed by another motion supported by over 233 cross-party members calling for the end of a genocide in East Bengal and the recognition of Bangladesh, end quotes. She said, the High Commissioner called on British parliamentarians to take a fresh motion for international recognition of 51 years of Bengali genocide and pledged to work with British parliamentarians and academicians towards increasing publications on Bengali genocide in the British and the international genocide journals. Expressing her gratitude to Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina for declaring the 25th of March as Bangladesh Genocide Day, the High Commissioner said, in quotes, "It is now the responsibility of our generation to create global awareness about international recognition of the 1971 Bengali genocide." In quotes, Rami Ranger, chair of Conservative Friends of India and a member of the UK's House of Lords, spoke at the event and expressed his support for the establishment of a Bengali genocide memorial in the UK, as well as its international recognition. High Commissioner for India to the UK, Gayatri Izar Kumar, referred the 25th of March 1971 genocide as the darkest chapter of Bangladesh's independence struggle and the massive crackdown against Bengali nationalists. Next news. As coronavirus infections rise in some parts of the world, experts are watching for a potential new COVID-19 surge in the US and wondering how long it will take to detect. Despite disease monitoring improvements over the last 2 years, they say some recent developments don't bode well. As more people take rapid COVID-19 tests at home, fewer people are getting the gold standard tests that the government relies on for case counts. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention will soon use fewer labs to look for new variants. A wastewater surveillance program remains a patchwork that cannot yet be counted on for the data needed to understand coming surges. White House officials say the government is running out of funds for vaccines, treatments, and testing. "We're not in a great situation," said Jennifer Nuzzo, a Brown University pandemic researcher. Scientists acknowledge that the wide availability of vaccines and treatments puts the nation in a better place than when the pandemic began, and that monitoring has come a long way. For example, scientists this week touted a 6-month-old program that tests international travelers flying into 4 U.S. airports. Genetic testing of a sample on December 14th turned up a coronavirus variant. The descendant of Omicron, known as BA.2, 7 days earlier than any other reported detection in the U.S. More good news. U.S. cases, hospitalizations, and deaths have been falling for weeks. But it's different elsewhere. The World Health Organization this week reported that the number of new coronavirus cases increased 2 weeks in a row globally, likely because COVID-19 prevention measures have been halted in numerous countries and because BA.2 spreads more easily. Next news. Germany's health minister said Friday that it's too soon to declare a Freedom Day from COVID-19 as the virus continues to run rampant, claiming hundreds of lives each day. The country's disease control agency reported 296,498 newly confirmed coronavirus cases in the past 24 hours and 288 deaths. German lawmakers voted last week to let most federal rules on wearing masks and testing expire. But Health Minister Karl Lauterbach urged the country's 16 states to use their powers to ensure social distancing and other safety measures in virus hotspots. In quotes, "The pandemic isn't over by a long shot," end quotes, Lauterbach told reporters in Berlin. In quotes, "There can be no talk of a Freedom Day. Quite the contrary," he said. "The real number of daily infections wasn't known, but could be twice the currently reported." Hospitals in particular were having to cancel procedures due to large numbers of sick staff, he added. Germany has had fewer deaths per capita than comparable European countries since the start of the outbreak. But officials are concerned that the low vaccination rates of under 76% could result in many more severe cases in future, particularly among the older population. Next news. A former Tennessee nurse is guilty of criminally negligent homicide in the death of a patient who was accidentally given the wrong medication, a jury found Friday. She was also found guilty of gross neglect of an impaired adult in a case that has fixed the attention of patient safety advocates and nurses organizations around the country. Redonda Vort, 37, injected the paralyzing drug vecuronium into the 75-year-old Charlene Murphy instead of the sedative Versed on December 26, 2017. Vaught freely admitted to making several errors with the medication that day, but her defense attorney argued the nurse was not acting outside of the norm and systemic problems at Vanderbilt University Medical Center were at least partly to blame for the error. The jury found Vaught not guilty of reckless homicide. Criminally negligent homicide was a lesser charge included under the original nurses who had come to the courthouse to support her. Vaught was calm after the verdict was read, but several of the nurses who surrounded her in the courthouse hallway were in tears. Interviewed after the verdict, Vaught said she was relieved to have a resolution after 4.5 years and hopes Murphy's family is relieved as well. In quotes, Miss Murphy's family is at the forefront of my thoughts every day, she said. You don't do something that impacts a family like this, that impacts a life, and not carry that burden with you. This has been the daily global news update of Millennium News TV 24/7. Thank you for watching. Please log in to get the latest news on all of our social networking sites. This includes Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. On TikTok, we are Millennium News 24. Also, our YouTube channel is News Channel M24. Viewers, now on both network, broadcasting, Android and iOS devices, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV. Also, all smart TV platforms. Check out our apps, Millennium TV USA on Android as well. Millennium News Google. Google us. www.millenniumnews24.com. That's millenniumnews24.com. Stay with Millennium News 24. Thank you and have a great day.